Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Annapolis Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you for your patience because the madness out there is midnight madness. We're started a little bit late. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Waldman,
I'm present.
Mr. Bellamy,
Present.
Mr. Cummings,
Present.
and Mr. Svakianudis.
We have a quorum, so we can continue. We have an agenda. There are only two matters on it. One of them is a public hearing on a site design review, and the other is businesses bringing us up to date on rezoning, continuing discussion that we've been having. So, and we have an approval of minutes from October 16th and November 6th. Let's take October 16th first. Have you all had the opportunity to read the minutes? Are there any edits, suggestions, or comments?
None.
Hearing none, I'll move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's seconded. All in favor of approving October 16th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
November 6th, same questions. You had the opportunity to review it?
Have. Yep.
Do you have any edits, reviews, comments, suggestions, detractions, deletions, or additions?
No, I do not.
None of those. All right. I'll move to approve. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor of approving November 6th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Administrative business. Our next meeting is going to be January the 8th. Is that correct? Correct. And it will be on Zoom, unfortunately, because our regularly scheduled meeting falls on New Year's Day. Now, I could take a straw vote here to see if you all want to meet on New Year's Day. I will bring Tylenol if that would help.
No, thank you.
So in order to get, we can't get council chambers because of one thing or another. So it'll be January the 8th on Zoom. I don't know of anything major that's on the agenda, but we will need to review the opinion on the 6th Street home that we looked at last meeting, and that will be coming through on the Google Drive pretty soon. I really ask you to take a look at it. I'm told that I haven't had to, I just got it, and but I'm told that it's detailed. The other thing we'll be doing is a review of the opinion and finding on the 161 West Street, next to the lemongrass. So we'll do those. Those are the only two things that I know of at this point. Okay, there may be others, but it'll be on Zoom January the 8th. So put it in, will you?
Right.
Great.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding we need to provide feedback on the 6th Street document that legal counsel provided before Friday?
No. It
won't be. Okay.
Okay. We're going to do all of that on the January 8th meeting.
Okay.
That the 6th Street opinion will be part of that. The other thing will be elections. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right. But other than that, there may be other things on that agenda, so be prepared. Public hearings. 102 Eastern Avenue. And while the applicant gets prepared to make its presentation, there may be people in the audience who do wish to testify on this. Not only are you allowed to testify, you're welcome to testify. We want to hear what people have to say. That's the purpose of one of the purposes of this planning commission. After the applicant makes a presentation, then I will open the public hearing, and I would ask you to come to the lectern, write down your name and address. There should be a pad there so that we can keep track of who testifies and their proximity to the application, where they live, how close it is or how far. And and we'll then proceed from there. So that will be basically the order of business. And then after the public hearing is closed, the commission will make deliberate and make a decision. All right. 102 Eastern Avenue. Site design review application for construction of a new addition to the existing single-family dwelling in excess of 3,250 square feet. Mr. Fulton? No, staff? Is there anything you wish to say?
Just as you said, this is for the approval of a rear addition that is greater than 3250. I know that their architect is going to go through the plans. This has been reviewed by the ECA. I should say that it's been there twice. The first review, I gave you a copy of all their letters in the record. The first rendition was for a house smaller than 3250, and then the next one was they decided to make the rear addition larger. So that is why there's more than one review of this plan. But as far as the city's concerned, the addition is in the back. It's not the front facade of the house is remaining the same from the ridge line forward. So it's the streetscape for the house will remain the same, and the addition it's not going to be taller. It's going to be back behind the house. But I'm not an architect, and Mr. Miles will do a better job at describing the house. But the city, it's a minor overage. The city is supportive of the project.
Any questions of staff? Okay. Mr. Fulton?
You said minor overage. How minor?
With it is 3,700.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, 3,723 or 33. My glasses aren't the greatest.
35.
35, sorry.
Yeah, I see 3584 is what I'm.
I see
So that is the first one, which they'll explain.
Oh, that's
That
the
was
first
what originally came in before the ordinance on how to measure with the exterior walls. There's some
Oh,
existing vacant spaces in the front dormer of the house. So
Got it.
they're going to show you
Do we
where these numbers.
Do we
ended up.
have a document like this that has the new calculation on it
It's on the bottom.
on the bottom?
It's where?
It's the updated.
It's the updated one I sent you November 4th
We do have
in a
copies if
separate
anyone would
email.
like to
It's
see it.
color coded.
What numbers do you have? A total square footage now with the measurement to the exterior wall, right?
3,735. And that was on the updated plan Z0002 that I sent separately November 4th. It's
Say it one more time. 3,700.
735.
So it's 485 square feet over.
Right. It extended from the previous edition or the previous plan that was submitted. It just got longer in the back.
And that does not include what they acknowledge is going to be a two-story garage with an ADU above it,
It does not.
right, which is a separate approval process, I understand.
Yes, that happened Tuesday, and they did receive
Permission.
permission for the ADU.
Say that one more time. Sorry. The ADU is what? That's not in there?
So ADUs are special exceptions in the
Yeah, no, I get
R2NC.
that.
So
I'm
they
just
did
curious.
receive approval for that. I think that ADU is 526. Thank you. 526
Great,
square
thank you.
feet. That's all I have, unless anybody has questions.
Applicant?
Evening, Mr. Chairman. Before I forget, just for context here, this application was on the November agenda, and as it happens, this application suffered from the same complications due to the recent 3250 ordinance as did the application you all heard back in November. So there was an original calculation of about 3,500 square feet. Once the law changed, we updated the calculation, submitted an updated drawing, and this new measurement technique yields this new 3,700 number. We'll explain where that 200 number comes from. I think it's rather marginal in the grand scheme of things, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I am Trip Fulton with Hyatt and Weber. I represent the applicant in this matter, Seth Lehner. He is present and seated to my right. We're also joined by our architect, Peter Miles, with the drawing board. As Ms. Burke stated, this is a 3250 rule request concerning the renovation of an existing principal single-family dwelling located in the R2NC at 102 Eastern Avenue. I trust the commission has received and reviewed these plans that Mr. Miles prepared. The concept here is fairly straightforward. I would note, and Ms. Burke also alluded to this, the applicant's plans that you all have received include both the proposal of this renovated single-family dwelling as well as a conceptual plan for a detached accessory garage structure. In a moment, Mr. Miles and I will explain kind of why and how permitting encourages that all of this be taken care of at once, why they all kind of be included on the same plan. It makes it much more efficient and streamlined. However, as the commission is aware, the 3250 rule does not contemplate or consider accessory structures. And so the focus of the hearing this evening really is just this single-family dwelling, which we will walk through in just a moment. As a quick reminder, I know the board doesn't need this reminder, but I feel it should be addressed on account of one or two public comments that were submitted for this project. The 3250 rule in the R2NC does not prohibit houses over 3250. It does one very, very simple thing. It states if an applicant's going to propose a single-family dwelling over 3250, that proposal must go before this planning commission for review before anything's ultimately approved. There are at least 9 homes on Eastern Avenue alone that are well over 3,250 square feet. There's 5 over 4,000 square feet. There's 4 over 5,000 square feet. I think this commission will find that this particular request is quite modest. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. Miles here to walk through this concept with me. Mr. Chairman, I recognize that this commission doesn't designate or accept expert witnesses. I am going to ask a question or two about Peter's background, just so you know who he is and what he does. Peter, can you give your name and address to the Planning Commission for me?
Yes, Peter Miles, 3024 Porter Street Northwest, Washington, D.C.
Mr. Miles, is the little green light on in your
Yes,
microphone?
can you, is that
Oh,
better?
there you go. And speak into it. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
And Peter, can you describe for the commission your educational background and whatever certification or qualifications you possess to be an architect?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science in Architecture and a master's degree from the Catholic University of America, and I'm licensed as an architect in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Georgia.
Are you familiar with the city's zoning code, the city code generally, and the applicable site design processes and requirements in the R2NC zoning district?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any experience developing and designing homes in the R2NC?
Yes.
I'm going to turn now to the plans. I figure we're probably going to bop around a little bit on these plans. We'll do our best to identify whatever sheet we're looking at so that the board can follow along. Peter, can we start with the size and scale of the project we're looking at here? If we could start, I figure we start in the basement and head up. I'd like to know what the square footage for each of the floors are.
What page are we looking at?
We're going to start on the site site plan.
Yeah, I think the site plan, which is page Z0001, probably the best page to start at.
And what this sheet does, I should take a step back. Before we take a hard look at each of the floor plates, what we'd like to do first is, just so that the commission is clear, look how the site is designed in terms of where the accessory structure is located in context of this single-family dwelling.
Right. So as Ms. Burke pointed out, ridgeline forward, the existing house remains. So we're not making any changes ridgeline forward of the house except recentering the door. And we have evidence that shows that the door used to be centered on the house. Behind the ridgeline, most of the existing structure remains. And then we have an addition off the back of the house that is actually less wide than the existing home. The new accessory structure is set towards the back of the property. It's about 62 feet from the property line in the front to the front face of the accessory structure. The location and bulk of the accessory structure is all by right per the zone. So the ADU was a special exception, but the structure itself is by right.
Can we take a look at the first floor?
Yes. Well, actually, just very quickly, we go to A200. The house does not really have a basement. There's an existing cellar. It's existing to remain, very low ceiling height, just a mechanical space, and the addition is on a crawl space. About half of the existing house is also on a crawl space, so we are not building a basement. And then the next sheet, AO201, the first floor. So existing front porch remains, columns, railing, everything remains there. We have reconfiguration of the interior. And then we go to the rear addition, which has kitchen, mudroom, living room.
Can you, I know it might not be on this particular page, but just for the record, tell us what the square footage of the proposed first floor is?
Yes, the first floor is 1840 square feet.
And that should be on sheet Z0002. I know it's not the one we're looking at, but Z0002 does have the accurate floor area calculations on them.
Correct. And that's to exterior of wall.
Right. You know what? If it's not the updated one that,
Oh, I see.
yeah, but the updated number might not be on it.
First floor didn't change. It was just the
Right.
second
First
floor.
floor didn't change anyways.
Yeah.
The old measure.
Second floor is A0202.
Can you briefly describe the layout of the second floor?
Yes. So the front of the house, ridgeline forward, stays the same. We have an existing dormer. We have existing windows. No changes there. I will note for the record here, when we talk floor area, you see there is eave space under the gambrel roof. So the adjustment was we took, for the new area, total floor plate. So we went outside of roofline structure and took that entire floor plate. So area that's under the eave, but also all the way out to the gutter line is included in that number. That's why it got larger. And then moving back, you have relocated internal staircase, 3 bedrooms located at the rear of the house, straddling the addition and the new portion of the home. And then the ADU is located on the second floor of the garage.
Just to send the matter home, again, before the 3250 ordinance change, this second floor plate was calculated at roughly 3,500 square feet. That didn't include certain space within that second floor that is entirely inaccessible. It's behind drywall, it's under eaves. But after the legislation change, we recalculated this to include those spaces, which results in this, I guess the second floor now is 1,895 square feet. Total with the first floor, we're looking at 3,735 square feet. That is the ask with this request, and I believe it's about, the chairman acknowledged, little under 500 square feet we're asking. Mr. Miles, can you generally, exterior-wise, explain how the architecture for 102 Eastern Avenue was planned and how the aesthetic of the R2NC was incorporated into this design?
Yes, so if I think the elevation pages are best here, so this is A0900 and 901. If we look at the front elevation, so this is the same, moving the door to the center. It's a very typical 1.5 story home. So you have a typical for Eastport, the mass is broken down. You have a front porch that's down at the first floor. You have a gambrel roof that gives you that, when I say 1.5 story, right, the front elevation gives the impression that's a 1-story home. The dormer gives you that partial story. Behind that, there's a full second floor. You can also see the accessory structure off to the side. Again, elevation views make it appear closer, but it's set quite a bit back, which you see on the side elevation. So what we've done, if we jump just a little bit and go to A901, and we look at the side elevations, so we have the existing form of the house, which is a gambrel broken down into 1.5 story. Double hung windows, mullions, so we've maintained that scale throughout. So the addition is also a gambrel that mimics the front gambrel with a hyphen as the connector. We've taken care that the highest point in the home is the existing front. The lot grades slightly up to the back, so measured from grade, the highest point is at the front of the house. We've carried the first floor roof line from the porch across the back to the architecture to maintain that look of a 1.5 story home, bring it down to a human scale. The kind of hyphen connector in between is set back slightly from the main mass of the house. The roof for that is a little bit lower. That roof eave, again, is at the 1.5 story height rather than the full 2 story. And throughout, we've maintained double hung windows, smaller scale for Eastport, very human scale. We've carried through the shake siding along to the new portion of the home as well. And then on the rear, we have a little bit more glass, so we switched to a little bit more of a board and batten look, which is kind of in keeping with places throughout Eastport that have either additions or porches off the back of the home.
You've very much touched on this, but just to make sure we're speaking about criteria that is applied in the R2NC, do you believe this home is compatible with the historic character and design of the immediate area and promotes the existing spatial and visual qualities in the R2NC area?
Yes.
I think Ms. Burke had mentioned that the additional space added in this renovation is designated for the rear of the house. Is that consistent throughout most Eastport homes?
Correct.
Does the proposed site plan observe the established historic front setback and building heights? And more to the point, are these things that the city required that you maintain when you were renovating this home?
Yes, and again, the front, there's actually no change. So the front setback is the historic setback and the height is the historic height.
And there's no part of this proposal that increases that height anywhere behind that front ridgeline?
Correct. The tallest ridgeline is the front.
Is it fair to say that the bulk massing and scale with this proposal is consistent to other structures along the block in the R2NC?
Yes.
And has the exterior structural alterations to historic and contributing structures along this street frontage been kept to a minimum?
Yes, ridgeline forward, no changes. And then ridgeline back of existing structure, there's minimal changes.
Do we have a proposed color that this is going to be? Do we know?
I don't think we've actually chosen a final color.
Like a white?
Easy taupe white. Yeah.
2162 governs additional criteria in the R2NC, such as relation of structure to adjacent development, height, width and facade, proportion, mass and relationship to the street, roof forms, composition, rhythm, proportion of openings, facade materials, and color. Do you think the proposal before the Planning Commission is consistent with the R2NC guidelines and other homes within the R2NC?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think these plans are, as I said from the get-go, relatively straightforward. They do a great job at showing all angles of the house and exactly what its features are. If you have any questions for Mr. Miles or I, or the applicant, Mr. Lehner, by all means, your questions are welcome.
Gentlemen? Since you finished up on color, I must be frank, I was expecting something like, primrose lavender and, some form of fuchsia, but white? It'll make it look bigger. Are other houses on the street white?
I don't know that for sure. I'm not sure it's necessarily something they have to totally commit to now, so long as it's a color that's consistent within the R2NC. I think if we were proposing neon orange, the raised eyebrows might be more.
Why? It might be consistent with the Eastport
That is true.
ethic.
That's true.
All right.
I
I have no other question.
I think the goal here, and I don't mean to speak for the applicant or Mr. Miles, but the goal was very much to take this long-time pre-existing home, take its features, and literally add them to the back, not to create anything new. With that, I think.
If there are no further questions, I will now open the public hearing. And I would ask that people come forward to the lectern, write and give us your name and address. Good evening.
The 9 structures that were cited as being over the limit, none of which are in the immediate block. They're all north of First Street. They're all on larger lots, and they're all waterfront properties. 102 is not. We, the below signed residents of the 100 block of Eastern Avenue, object to the granting of the building permit for multiple reasons. The property would exceed the 3,500 square footage in the RCMC joining district, and all of the residents in the 100 block are single-family residents. This would change the character and or the dynamics of an old established neighborhood. There are 7 single-family residents in that block. Of them, 3 of them, the families have been there over 75 years. The changes appear to be adding additional units to the property to continue to offer an Airbnb or vacation rental by owner, which tonight is rented and has been continually. It also appears that it is not a current short-term rental license for the property. It also appears that the owner of the property is not living on the property. The plans for the proposed changes have not been shared with the residents of the street. There was no posting or knowledge of where we could even review them. There is a concern that the changes would exceed what would be appropriate for the area as stated in point 1. And I'll leave the petition with you.
Great. Bring it forward, please. I'd like to make it part of the record.
Mr. Chairman, is there any way I could see a copy of the petition?
Why don't you leave it with Mr. Fulton? You leave it with me. I'll make sure that he gets to see it. Okay.
Just for the record, I'm unsure off the top of my head what the proper procedure is for submitting written comments. I'd like to see a copy at some point, but I would object on those grounds. I'm not suggesting.
I'm going to let you take
Anymore.
a look at it after we see it. You know, it's difficult. Communities are not equipped to handle procedures. You know, it was a close call last meeting on a different issue, okay? I can't hold these people to that kind of a standard. It's not that kind of our process is not that formal.
I totally understand, Mr. Chairman. I was merely preserving it.
Yeah, no, I think that you should get a chance to look at it, because you'll notice that every home on there is on Eastern Avenue in the 100 block. Yes, please, come forward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Herndon. I live at 404 Chester Avenue, Annapolis, 21403. I'm part owner of property on Eastern Avenue, 100 block. Forgive me because I don't know all the particulars of this. But what I do know is that the existing property, adding another 3,700 and some square footage, is overwhelming. And you also put in an ADU there as well. Are there any setbacks? The property lines? Who's going to live there? It's already rental. Think you got, I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it. But sometimes you need to get out of these seats and walk through the neighborhoods or drive through the neighborhoods and look to see what's going on before you make decisions that affect long-term residents. Thank you.
It's up there. Yeah.
A quick question. Are you familiar with I don't really know the guidelines of Airbnb within the community. Do you have those? Are you familiar with them?
I am.
Okay.
There are two things to point out. First, there are strict city conditions in terms of a property owner's ability to rent an Airbnb. They were fleshed out on Tuesday night when we were seeking our ADU approval, just so the commission is aware. The code states if you have an ADU and you would like to either use it or rent it, you must live at the property yourself. Right now, there is no ADU. That second two-story accessory detached structure is just a concept right now. If you're standing out front, it does not exist. Right now, it's just an old single-family home that's being rented. It's not a criteria for the commission tonight, and it really isn't a criteria for the Board of Appeals when we were seeking the ADU special exception. But it was made clear then, and it was a condition imposed on that ADU approval, that if and when the time comes that there is an ADU developed on this property, the property owner must reside at that property in order to utilize the ADU. It's set in the code. That's really it.
I'm sorry. I do go back and forth, yes. We have another home in Alexandria, Virginia, so I have certainly lived at the home. I go back and forth.
But if the ADU is built to then property.
Correct.
That's our understanding of the current code, yeah.
And is license required for Airbnb?
Correct, yes. That's citywide.
Okay.
You're required to have an Airbnb license in order to operate in short-term rental.
Do you intend to live in the property full-time?
That's my intent, yes.
Is there anybody else who would like to testify? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, I shall close the public hearing then. I have a question of the applicant. You said that, if I can find my notes, that there were homes, there were several homes on Eastern Avenue that are large, so we say. And there was testimony that the homes in the 100 block of Eastern Avenue are not, in fact, large, meaning 3,250 square feet or larger. So can you tell me what homes you looked at, the addresses of the homes that are larger, and how many of them are on waterfront?
Taking it backwards, this is coming from me personally, Mr. Chairman. And also all this information is pulled directly from SDAT, which uses a methodology for calculating the square footage of homes that's actually probably lower than what it actually is. The state still doesn't count any attic space, just like the city didn't up until such time that they changed the law. The following properties I saw based on nothing but SDAT, but confirmed are in the R2NC, are all over 3,250. 1.5 Eastern, that's a 6,500 square foot house.
What's the address?
1.5, 1.5, excuse me. 5 Eastern Avenue, I believe is a 5,200 square foot house. 9 Eastern Avenue is a 7,000 square foot house. 15 Eastern is a 6,100 square foot house, and 17 Eastern is a 4,800 square foot house.
So those are not in the 100 block.
That's correct, but I don't think they're all too far away. I don't know. Scratch that. That's correct, as far as I know.
What? All right, let's be careful about. Okay.
What I will say is this: I think respectfully, there's disagreements on what constitutes a neighborhood, right? For me, I don't look at you living across the street from me as a different neighborhood. I don't look at you living 1 block away as a different neighborhood. I don't look at it as, oh, well, they have waterfront and I don't, as a different neighborhood when you're just across the street from each other. That's not how I view neighborhood, right? So now, I don't know anyone that does define it that way until it suits them to define it a different, right? Generally speaking, I look at my neighbors as the people who are part of my neighborhood. They live across the street from me. They live maybe 1 block in each direction, right? So 1 block in each direction across the street, that's my neighborhood. So when someone says, well, they're the 200 block, not the 100 block, it's still the same neighborhood.
Okay, I'm going to follow up. I'm not going to let that go, but how many of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties are waterfront?
Mr. Chairman, I personally don't know. I brought these numbers to the board's attention purely on a very simple principle. There are properties within the R2NC that are over 3,250. I don't have much more information other than that. But
Okay.
My applicant does.
I have to go back to this again.
I don't know that I've said my name yet. Seth Lehner, 102 Eastern Avenue, Annapolis, 21403. I might point out to you that my side of the block, the even side of the block, is in fact zone R2NC. The opposite side of the block is entirely zoned WME. So I think I can't help but point out that respectfully, we're talking about quite literally 2 different zones, even though Ms. Solomon, who spoke before, she happens to live on the WME zoned side. Okay. The second thing is that many of these homes, which Mr. Miles just pointed out, those homes are quite literally within eyesight of my front porch. So to speak to the idea of what's a neighborhood, I think if you can see it, you could argue that that's certainly in the neighborhood. Third is several of those homes, I actually think that my neighbor at 100 Eastern actually exceeds 3,500 feet. Now, I don't know that to be fact, but I think it's actually a larger home than one might think. I'll leave it at
And if I may, you said that across the street from you is not of the same zone, but I will say that if you're looking at 102 Eastern Ave and you move one house to the right, You're looking at 102, go one house to the right, right?
Yeah, correct. That would be 100.
100.
Yep, that's a corner
And you do an
lot.
about face and you look behind you,
Yes.
that is still R2NC. That's still the same zone.
Okay, so let's get even more granular. If you, maybe you have a map in front of you.
I have a
don't
map
know.
in front of me.
Okay, so
It's the
directly
same zone.
understood. So directly, if you're looking at 102,
Mhm.
beyond it is all R2NC looking inland, right? So then if you turn yourself 180 degrees,
Mhm.
you're looking at Horn Point Harbor, which is a WME zoned waterfront property. And from there,
Is it possible for us to get
Go ahead.
the zoning map up here? Is it?
You'd
just-
have to ask Casey Ortiz.
Yeah. Is it possible? Just so that make it very obvious for people, if we can get the zoning map up here, please. Thank you. Sorry.
You know, there's been several references to waterfront. What effect does that have, if any, on the size of the home?
Not sure it does.
we're not sure it does.
When I look at it, for me anyway, right? It's the same zone. If it's the same zone and it's in the same neighborhood, whether it has waterfront or not, it's the same neighborhood in the same zone. That's how I view it. Now, the ones that are in a different zone, that's a different regulation, right? That's a different ordinance. Yeah, 102 Eastern Ave. Going to be right next to that blue dot. So yeah, what I was saying is, essentially when we're looking here, you have, if I were to look at a neighborhood, essentially what you can see around a house, right? That blue is a different zone, so we should not consider that. That's not what we're looking at. But we are looking at the R2NC, and within that, whatever, orange, gray, whatever that color is, my colors are not the greatest. So we're looking at 102, and so the ones that are within the same zone and within a block around it is what I would look as relevant. Yeah.
Well, one observation I might make is that the homes that were cited by Mr. Fulton are all odd numbered, which would mean that there would be on the right side, as we look at this map, on the right side of Eastern Avenue, which puts them as waterfront property. So I think that that's apples and oranges. I don't think that they really comply with. I mean, it doesn't affect my consideration. I find it irrelevant.
So, quick
What
question.
I'm looking at is the 100 block of Eastern, and maybe the 0 block, but the even side.
So if someone from, let's say, 103 comes on over to watch a football game with you, you would say, you're not my neighbor.
Well, according to this map, 103 happens to be in the taupe color, the brown color.
Yeah.
But, and the blue is Marina. I mean, it's different.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
All I'm saying is that, excuse me, as you go up the shoreline, those are all on the odd numbered side of the street.
No, I understand. I
And-
guess
And the addresses that were cited were all odd numbered, and they're all waterfront. So I don't think that that's apples and oranges. That doesn't to say that there are 7 properties that are
No.
larger than 3,200
Sure, I
square
get-
feet. So what? That's not the same neighborhood.
But it is.
So that
It's the
person
same
comes
zoning,
over,
it's the same neighborhood.
you're like, hey, I'm calling my neighbors and they can come watch football with me, but you're not my neighbor. If you're,
Well, when
3
you're
blocks
talking-
down, or 3 houses
when you're
down.
talking like we're talking neighborhood characteristics, neighborhood design, neighborhood massing, neighborhood size.
Yep.
It's a different neighborhood. It's a waterfront
That's why I said, I think that we.
giant house neighborhood rather than the modest homes that are in the 100 block.
Sure. So when I look at the ordinance, I'm not seeing the ordinance make any delineation between if you're that waterfront and you're not the waterfront. I do see in the ordinance that the ordinance talks about the neighborhood. And what I would say is if I'm inviting my neighbors over for a little get together, I'm going to include my neighbors that are 3 houses down from me.
Okay. Anything further? I think that what this discussion has revealed, just as the discussion a month ago revealed, is there's some real problems with this code.
I would agree with that.
God, there's some problems. So I've been making some notes on what could be changed in the code, and I think that there's some moves afoot to clean it up and make it more clear and more structural and help us out a little bit here. One of them is, and my 5th point is, what is a neighborhood? I mean, okay. So, I mean, what I see here is I see an historic neighborhood of modest homes that has held on through all of the years in Eastport and through all of the rising property assessments and taxation, and that it's a well-knit, close-knit community. That the names and addresses on the petition were all in the very close vicinity, making it the close neighborhood and not the, extended neighborhood. But they were all in the 100 block of Eastern Avenue. And this home that's proposed is, from what I can tell, is clearly larger than anything else that's down there. On the other hand, they've worked very closely with an architect, and the architect and the team has worked very closely with the staff and with the Architectural Review Board of the Eastport Civic Association, has made many changes. And one of the things that's revealed to me through these pages is how cooperative this applicant has been compared to, shall we say, other applicants. So it's a tough call here because this is a very large home, and it is about, well, under the new measurements, it's about 15% larger, at least, than what was there before. And yet it's been designed well. Now, one of the problems I have, going back to my first point about the code, is that the garage and the ADU, which take up property space, it's another structure. It adds to the sort of the density of this lot. It adds to the difference between this property and the adjoining or nearby properties. It's that ADU and garage are not considered part of the square footage. That might be addressed in a new, in a revision of the code. I think that they should be included, but they're not for now. So I'm kind of caught in the middle here. I mean, I can see that it's a sensitive design, and I can see that the neighbors are concerned that this giant house, it's not giant, but it's certainly big. It's 4 bedrooms and a complete first floor, much larger than its neighbors, is the sign of, impending change. That's where I am. I'd be glad to hear from my colleagues.
Well, I don't love that it's an Airbnb, but at the same time, it seems to fit all the criteria, and I think you're right. The problem with the code, to not include the ADU in the, in the square footage is just kind of like saying, hey, you can just go as big as you want almost, as long as it's detached, So, but I think our hands are tied a little bit too, because, it seems to fit a lot of the criteria as it's written.
Pardon me, could you repeat what you said about Airbnb? I didn't catch it.
I said I don't love that it's an Airbnb.
You don't love?
Yeah.
It is Airbnb.
Yeah.
Is the house going to be established as Airbnb?
So as we sit here today, there is no detached garage. It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an older single-family home that has utilized short-term rental licensing through the city.
Mm.
Should this proposal come to fruition and be constructed, there will be the two-car garage and the renovated single-family home. There's an Airbnb, an accessory dwelling unit proposed to be above the two-car garage. But the city requires, if you choose to use that ADU, the principal dwelling must be inhabited by the owner of the property itself. That's a requirement for even utilizing that ADU, which was approved earlier this week.
Got it. Thanks.
I neglected to bring up one practical point. Mr. Miles has a great explanation as to why this is all on the same sheet of paper, why we're doing this together. I'll turn over to Peter for one quick point.
Yeah, so I recognize some of it's confusing to see the ADU and everything else, but this project will have one building permit plus stormwater management. So after we get through this gauntlet of hearings, there's a single submission to the city. So for purposes for the city's review in the future, we have a single drawing set, and then we're reviewing certain issues. So if you look at their existing drawings earlier in the plan set, the only thing that exists now is a single family home. So it's just kind of the way the procedure works. We need one drawing set that shows everything that we're doing, and we need these meetings and hearings to happen before we submit for a building permit.
No, I frankly appreciate that because it gets us, it gives us the whole picture, exactly. And, whether that unit above the garage can in fact or will not or be used as a short-term rental, it's the size of a two-car garage. So who knows what it'll be used for. But the way the process works now is that these ADUs that come in with or might be associated with these larger homes, they follow a different track and they're not included in our consideration. So I think people in the audience should know that. And I think I'm fairly comfortable with the fact that it'll be a single family residence because it's not designed to be built into separate apartments. Although who knows? And that any kind of ADU or short-term rental, Airbnb, use of the space above the garage will be licensed and regulated. And people in the neighborhood are to keep their eye on it to make sure that Mr. Lehner and his family actually live there. No, I think that the problems are deeper than that. I mean, the problems with this whole, what's going on in Eastport, which is that, the property values have skyrocketed, larger homes get built. Everybody now realizes if you build back and you leave the front facade, you can get away with a lot. My feeling is that this application doesn't get away with a lot. When it first came in under the old measurement rules, it wasn't very much. Now with the new measurement rules, it's more. I just warned you last time, you guys better watch out because the precedents get set. And what is the limit? What's the limit? As a planner, what's the limit?
For me, it would be, again, your neighborhood. Let's take a census block group, right? Census block group being a neighborhood. And if it stands outside of that, what is found within that. So like I said, we have different definitions of what a neighborhood is and where that line is. And what I would say is if I saw on here, and I wasn't seeing the numbers that I'm seeing for square footage for houses that are not even waterfront, I'd go, okay, that's outside the realm. But the way I look at it is you've got 3780, 4450. These homes are not, these two that I'm looking at here are right around it, not waterfront. So I'm looking at it and going, okay, in the years that they were built, you got one built in 1896, you got some built in the 1960s, 1980s. It's, to me, it's on the higher end, agreed, but I'm not seeing where it goes against the code. And that's for me is the criteria is show me anyone where something violates the code, and you'll get my no vote. Okay. Our city ordinance for when it comes to this zoning area, for example. Show me where it violates R2NC, which in this case, the height's 25 feet, 11 inches. So that's fine. The square footage, 30, I want to make sure that people understand, 3250 has nothing to do with pass or not pass. 3250 has nothing to do with that. It is nothing more than whether it's built by right or it just has to come in front of us. There's no criteria in which it says above 3250 should in any way say no. It says, does it then meet the neighborhood? And I look at the neighborhood and I go, all right, well, my definition neighborhood, let's go one block, left, right, up, down. Yeah, okay, it's within that. So.
Well, I can see the logic in that.
Yeah. And I think 3 houses down is my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. I'm going to call for a motion
Motion
to,
approve.
okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. It's a problem. What is a neighborhood? Okay? These people feel like their neighborhood is distinct
Yep.
from those waterfront properties, okay?
So
And-
then
and
the
that
city
needs to be
council.
respected.
Yep, thank you. So the city council then should not use a loose definition word, a word that doesn't have a real definition.
The problem is all.
Yeah. So in this case, they're defining your neighborhood almost like it's the zone, but I'm not even using the whole zone. I'm using a very small portion of that zone.
That's why I raised the question, how does waterfront factor into this? If it does.
It doesn't say it in the
It
code.
does, it does, right.
It doesn't, because
The code doesn't mention it.
It doesn't mention it.
I should have voted no.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to do a little parliamentary maneuvering here. I voted in favor of the motion. I would like to retract my vote, okay? I'd like to vote differently. I have a right to do that under Robert's Rules of Order. So I'm going to call for a revote on that motion. All right? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Nay. Okay? I think that it should be known that there's resistance to this, okay? And we should do something about it. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen who testified, I want to thank you. You expressed yourselves well, or better than well. And it's clear that you put in some work on this. The petition is clear. Life, cities change, life changes. I encourage you to stay involved in community affairs as continuing. You have a question? Okay. Thank you.
And there are other, yes, things do, but people that abide by the laws instead of finding.
Well, I want you to understand that this 3,250 square foot thing, it's not a limit. It's not a prohibition. It just means that it has to come to us. And it's very unclear what we're supposed to do. So we're struggling with it. But
Our job is to enforce the rules, and that was within
Your
the
job
rules.
is also to investigate the problem.
yes.
And daily I see it not happen. But I'm hoping the administration will get people that are more about the law.
About enforcement.
Right.
I agree. And I clearly recognize that this is an historic community. I mean, I get that. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
$816 better than I was like, is it really only $816? Actually, that's strange. They opened it as PDFs. Okay.
Speak for a moment. I don't know if you all can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, great. Chair, may I speak for just a moment?
Excuse me?
Chair Waldman, I would like to speak for a moment about our decisions that need to be signed off on.
Yes, please do. Please
Okay,
do.
so-
This is an appropriate
Yes.
moment.
Okay, great. As our code says, we have 45 days after a decision is made to issue our opinion. The decisions on two matters were made on November 6th, so the decision is on the record, the vote has been taken. It's just a matter of the written opinion. I know the practice has been to do those opinions at a meeting, but there's nothing requiring that you do that. You could just approve it through the Google Drive and it can be
Wait a minute, you're
issued.
fading out.
You could approve it through the Google Drive mechanism and it can be issued in between meetings because there's some difficulty with doing it. In January, it would be late under the code. You have 45 days to issue an opinion. I think,
Doesn't the code say something about how that can be extended?
I don't believe so, but I don't have that in front of me, but there's no reason to. It's just a written opinion of what happened at the meeting. Everyone can, if they have edits or suggestions, they can do that through the Google Drive. And the signature doesn't have to be at a meeting. The Board of Appeals regularly does this. They do it between meetings because of the timing issue, because the decision, frankly, has already been made. It's just a written decision that hasn't been issued. And so there's no reason to wait until the next meeting. And if you all wanted to do it at a meeting, I would suggest you do a special meeting, which you only need, 24, 48 hours for. You could do virtually if you want to do it at a meeting, but we would need to approve those within the 45 days. So everyone has them. We didn't send it on a Google Drive, but everyone has it. I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to look at it.
But we just got it, and it's pretty detailed.
Understood.
Okay, and so none of us have had the opportunity to read it, really, because we just got it. So
Yeah,
frankly,
it was sent out initially.
Frankly, if the opinion should have been done in 45 days, we should have had it after 30. So,
And it is 30. Yeah, it's 30 right now.
I think
It's
that one of
30.
the things I would appreciate you're doing, and while we hear from Mr. Lashinsky and his team,
Sure.
is to look at the code to see if we can't get an extension of that 45 days. The other thing is that our practice has been to vote on these things, especially when it's a final decision. And I'd like to continue that practice. And I find Google Drive to be kind of cumbersome. I mean, people will sign in with edits and comments, and then the next person says, I agree, I don't agree, and the third person says, I don't agree, and I agree. And so it will go on. It could go on for a long time and get really messy. So I want to clean up the process. So if you could do that while Mr. Lashinsky spends some time with us, I'd appreciate it, and we'll get back to you afterwards, okay?
Well, I'll send you an email. I won't be able to be on.
No.
But let me say, let
Stay
me
on
just
the
say
meeting
this.
because we want to resolve this, okay?
Okay, can I say one more thing? It is
Yes.
30 days Saturday. So you do have it, and you've had it since Tuesday. It is 30 days. So I just want to say that for the record. The city law department has opined and they want the decision issued within the 45 days. I will check for any exceptions and get back to you. So thank you for indulging me.
Oh, yeah, we'll be back with you. Thank you. All right. We now move to less contentious matters.
So far. Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning. Thank you for having us here with the Comprehensive Planning team. They can introduce themselves when they speak. But we wanted to get back to our comprehensive rezoning initiative, which we kicked off some months ago the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Overlay District was part of that. 01425 was part of that. We now have two more pieces which constitute phase 2 of this process. You're going to hear two presentations tonight. First one is more brief than the second one. It's focusing on parks and open space rezoning. This is a zoning district that already exists in the city code but has not been utilized. It's been in existence for some 20 years, I think. We want to put it to use.
What zone? What are you talking about?
There is an open space zoning district in the city code, but it's not on the zoning map. That's what you're going to hear from first. And then I'll give a few comments about the second presentation. So I'm hand it off to Alexis here.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Alexis Robinson, Senior Comprehensive Planner. And as Eric said, we're going to start this off nice and easy. So a little bit of background. So this is the agenda for this presentation. We'll go to a background of what we've done so far with the comprehensive rezoning, more information about this existing zoning district code, and then what we see as next steps for this zoning district. So this is where we are currently as we have started this comprehensive rezoning process. Earlier this year, we worked on plan development text amendments in the Tyler Avenue Overlay District. Currently, we are in phase 2 with the zoning district consolidation. We anticipate that going until spring of 2026. In this phase, we'll be working through recommendations for zoning map updates and zoning district consolidation analysis. And following that will be a phase 3 and phase 4 focus on form-based zoning standards for mixed use and residential zoning districts. So these are the completed components of phase 1, the plan development amendment of 01425 and the short-term rental amendment, which is 01725, and then the Tyler Avenue Overlay District 02925. These things have come before you many times, and I'm sure you remember them well. So this is just a little bit of background to what we have been working on before getting into this next piece of the open space zoning district. So one of the things that the comprehensive planning staff has been looking at is how to preserve open space and natural resources in the city. Creating clear limits for development and dedicating space to open space. Currently, most open space in the city is zoned as its adjacent properties. So most of that is residential. A few are R1 and mixed use. A few of them are industrial as well as professional office. As Eric mentioned before, nothing that is what you would consider traditional open space is actually zoned for open space, even though this is a zoning district in the code. What staff looked to propose was to recommend a new zoning district that would apply to the existing and future parks, existing and future conservation easements, and properties that are owned by schools would not be included in this zone. But we found out that this zone already existed. This is a comparison for your viewing of what the zoning map looks like currently and what the future land use map in the comprehensive plan looks like. The future land use map has a lot of light green areas that are environmental enhancements that we could see as potential areas to include in this open space zoning district. And as Eric mentioned before, the open space zoning district is not in the existing zoning district.
I should also add that dark green, most of the dark green on the map on the right are the existing parks in the city. but there are some other dark green parcels that we saw as recreational opportunities, so some portions of schools, but we recognize that that might be more challenging to rezone those.
Just as a few examples of areas that we could see as being included in this zoning district, these are two lists of parks and open space facilities within the city. Truxton Park, the nature park at Back Creek, a few street end parks, as well as conservation easements like Kingsport and Spa Creek, Annapolis Walk of varying sizes. We took into consideration also the effectiveness of including conservation easements of a certain size, at least over 1 acre. The conservation easement regulations would supersede the zoning district, but we would want to have those larger areas included in this zoning district to really show off those environmental pieces of the zoning.
So you intend to include both sides of this chart?
Yes.
You do intend to include those that are covered by a conservation easement?
Yes.
And on the left side is properties that are actually owned by the city?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for Casey Ortiz, for the conservation easements, we'd be looking to include the over a certain threshold. So there are some conservation easements that are like an acre or under. Those will not be included because with a lot of what we're doing with this, we're trying to cut down on some of the redundancies.
On the what?
We're doing.
Trying to cut down on the what?
Redundancies. So if there's like piecemeals of conservations that are already being preserved, we're not trying to have little like holes in the zoning that you can't really see from like zoomed out.
Like a speckled pattern zoning map. If we were to include every single conservation easement in the city, you would have these green dots everywhere. Whereas the smaller park sites that you see on the left, like most of the smaller sites are street end parks. So they're at the end of a street. Mm-hmm. So they're not necessarily going to be kind of in the middle of an island.
Anything under?
Probably not. And it's really more of for legibility on the map, so it looks kind of clear.
And another question. Why are you not including school property? What is it to them? It's our city. Why can't we put them under a zone that we want?
Well, it's certainly something we can discuss with them, but we're just not, I would say we're not very optimistic about their willingness to be
Do we need their
supportive of
permission?
that.
State owned property?
No,
They're county owned.
The county owns
Yeah.
County schools.
county schools.
And, they have plans on some of these sites, maybe some of them, like the Germantown site, for example, where there's active ball fields, the sites, the Bates complex. There might be some that would be appropriate, but I think with some of these school sites, I think, they're looking to potentially expand their facilities in the future, perhaps, and just think it may not be a very amenable change to the school system, but I don't know.
I want to add before you talk. A lot of the research we did when we referenced a lot of other jurisdictions, when we did open spaces, schools are normally zoned for one. They're normally like the uses are embedded within the zone, and it's abnormal to zone a school as open space. We're kind of following like what other jurisdictions do as well, in a sense.
Well, just the fact that that's what they've been doing doesn't mean that it's necessarily right, because as they may be faced with the same thing we're faced with now and realizing now, which is that a lot of the recreational spaces in the city are school properties. They really are. They may not be big, they may not be great, but that's what they are. And you don't need their permission. I don't know how it would stymie them from some form of expansion of their, their current buildings.
Well, it would, because it would definitely constrain their ability to use their properties, for facilities. But I mean, it's not out of the question to look at some of these school sites and the opportunities that might be there. But again, particularly the ones where the city already has an agreement in place to use the site for recreation, there's some likelihood that'll continue, right?
Well, it may be that rather than the city parks taking care of them, it may be county parks that then begin to be the agency with which to deal. The school system won't relinquish ownership, but they may relinquish, use within certain boundaries, and that it would be overseen by county parks rather than city parks. I mean, it's all up in the air. But okay, this is a push.
But you're
to get use of these school facilities. I mean,
yeah.
And if you can rezone a few of them, like you said, that are now primarily used for athletics, and will not be encroached upon by any expansion. Okay. Yeah.
So now I'm going to go over the existing zoning district code and what recommendations that we're adding to it. I apologize that this is so small. So the existing open space district has the purpose of open space being to provide for the preservation and enhancement of areas in the city that are designated as open space, and includes areas such as floodplains, parks, and environmental preservation areas. We're recommending to add in conservation easements to that purpose. We will go through what the uses that have been permitted within the open space in the next few slides. But the development standards, currently, the development standards include setbacks of for any use or structure other than a pier, conservation use, passive recreation use, beach shall be located at least 50 feet from any lot line and 75 feet from any road right of way. There's also a height limitation of 45 feet and a maximum height of 25 feet for accessory structures. We're recommending to include a minimum lot area of 1 acre for conservation easements, parking spaces to be determined through the use in a site development plan approval process, and that bulk regulations to be determined at a site design plan review or plan development process. Those things will have to be added to the code, the chapter 21.22 for plan development, also within the code. And we are also recommending under development standards to restrict development for all forest, forest designated on development plans shall be maintained to the maximum extent practicable, as well as require reforestation, mitigation, offset areas to be protected from future development by a conservation easement. And that's language that is already in the code under the regulations for conservation easements, but to really reinstate it, we want to include it in this zoning code language.
Do you think you could, is the entire code section all on one page there?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you could send it to Ms. Consoli to be posted in our Google Drive, maybe for our next meeting? Because I can't read it from here.
I understand.
It's lost. So it's one page, we can read it and we can talk about it. Okay. Let's send it around. I think that would be helpful. Okay.
Pardon me. I should have asked this question at the beginning. For my frame of reference, what context are we reviewing this as a planning commission? You're seeking our advice, approval eventually?
Yeah, that's a good question. I should have stated at the beginning that this is the first of what will probably be several presentations where we will ultimately be looking for recommendation from the Planning Commission on making these zoning changes that would then have to become legislation introduced by the City Council to actually advance. So we want to make the case to this body that there's justification here and get any comments that could improve what we're suggesting. And then
Thank you. That's helpful.
So will this be legislation that's suggested proposed by the Planning Commission? You know, it can do that.
It could be, or, you know, our director, I think, has the ability to do that as well. So, yeah.
Right.
But we would want sponsor from the City Council that,
There you go.
you know, hopefully the mayor, or,
All right.
you know.
Can't get any better than that. All right. Oh, God.
So this is a table of uses that are already included within the open space zoning district. There's 2 slides for this, and the things that we are recommending to include based on parcels in the city that would fit the definition of open space would include cemeteries as a permitted use, and active recreation uses as an accessory use.
Home occupation. Why are home occupations
I don't know.
permitted in an open space natural resources conservation easement zone? Go back. Yeah, why are home occupations or golf courses?
We internally talked a few days ago about removing some. Some are a little crazy.
For what?
We talked internally a few days ago about adjusting some of the uses that exist because some of them are a little crazy.
We should share this with the legislation, and you could review it, and perhaps there are some recommendations for ones that could be removed. I mean,
Recreation.
Yeah, so this slide has passive recreational uses as something to be permitted, as well as structures to support recreation. The rest of the list, including telecommunication, structures for boating, swimming, fishing, structures for hunting, structures for
Structures permitted for hunting. Wow.
for administrative and custodial uses, and existing residential uses are already in the zoning code.
Home occupation mean like an existing home that's on a property? Is that what it?
we're not sure. I can't think of the only exception. I mean, the only example. That
I mean, I was just thinking of like Quiet Waters has some homes that are there that have been there for 100 years. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's what they're referring to, like a park
Yeah.
ranger.
There's a
living in that
caretaker's.
house. Well, there is. There's
um,
a caretaker's thing. for Quiet Waters.
Yeah, Waterworks Park has a caretaker's home that's actually occupied by a city staff person, believe it or not. And that's the only thing I can think of. Do you guys? Yeah.
It doesn't help that it's not in use.
Be
We have no
prepared.
reference for
Be
solar.
prepared to prune this list of uses, and maybe kind of collect them into something. You know, like golf courses. Is that really an option? Is there any place that's? Then take it out.
Miniature golf.
Okay, all right. We'll get to that when the proposal is finalized, right? Proposed uses based on.
So overall, what we're proposing are uses based on current uses and parcels that would be rezoned to open space to ensure compliance. This language of code mirrors that of Anne Arundel County and other jurisdictions to the city of Annapolis. They have different approaches, but we took some of what they've been using as guidance. We are still assessing a size threshold, as Casey mentioned, for the inclusion of conservation easements within the open space district, and a few definitions and maybe removal of uses will have to be developed and added to the use table. So just a frame of reference, this is what some of the adjacent municipal code calls for. A lot of them have very unique approaches to open space, such as what is already required for different developments, different types of open space based on where they're located within their county. But overall, each has uses that follow what you would conventionally think of open space, such as active and passive recreation, community farming, telecommunication facilities that are attached to a structure, trails, natural features, and water recreation. And so to conclude, what we see as next steps were to include a detailed map of recommended sites for rezoning, updating the recommendations for zoning consolidation based on Planning Commission feedback, coming to present with you all again on what open space might look like within the city, and go on to present to the city council as well as to the public through an open house or workshop.
Yeah, we're hoping to get into a work session with the new city council maybe in January. We don't know what their schedule looks like yet, but we just, as we work with you all, we want to keep them on board, or make sure that they understand what we're trying to do here, so it's not completely new to them when we eventually come with recommendations.
Can you go back a page to the other jurisdictions? I think that's another interesting one. I wish you'd also give that to us to post, because it gives us something to look at. Like Rockville has one open space zoning district, but Montgomery County, talks about different kinds.
We should just share the whole presentation.
Huh?
We'll just share the whole presentation with you, I think. I mean, we can pull out these things as
You can
separate.
give us the presentation. It's not that much. But that's an interesting way to kind of start. I don't know that we have enough different kinds and what's applicable to our situation. We don't want to get too complicated, but you also want to something, behind, behind Bates Middle. I could see a carnival setting up, or, you know what I mean? Used all, as after Juneteenth parade and stuff like that. I mean, it's already used as a temporary something other than recreation, So I don't know if it's necessary. Why don't you guys talk about it, about whether different kinds of open space subzones necessary, if advisable, or just overly complex. But it, occurs. Okay.
I'm just curious, on that one slide, it said Kingsport. It was like 70 acres.
Yeah.
About where is that?
46 acres.
46 acres.
There's two large conservation tracts that were put into easement when they did the platting for that development. So one is off of Bywater Road, and the other is off of Greenbrier, Childs Point Road, and they're owned by the city, actually. So yeah,
really.
Yeah. The other thing,
And nothing's like, could there be a park there? Could there be something?
yeah,
there?
actually, well, one is adjacent to Bywater Park, which is a playground that could be much more than it is today. Yeah, it's a small playground on a pretty large area, and then you could see on the far. So the big bright green parcel in the southern part of the city is the recently protected part of Villages at Providence Point. So that's the 100-acre or so, I think, easement along Spa Road, and then to the west of that are the Kingsport parcels, those two bright green, the larger one, the upper left, and then the one, that one is next to Bywater Park, or part of Bywater Park, and then the other one below is on Crab Creek, and I think that one is adjacent to an area that was is part of a Kingsport sort of amenity feature that I think is in their HOA management. But
That could be a great walking place. That meadow could be planted in a native meadow. There was just an article in the Post about native grasslands and how much more life exists in a native grassland instead of just cutting grass. I mean, some passive trails through there, inexpensive to make, inexpensive to maintain. Once you get anything native going, it takes care of itself, Parking would be minimal, intrusion on the surrounding neighborhood be nothing. Like that would make a wonderful counterpoint. I'd forgotten about that. 46 acres.
yeah. And we should have also mentioned this map on the right does not include all of the conservation easements that exist. We're kind of working to
All right, good.
capture
Well, when do you think you'll be back with us? January 8th?
next month. We're going to basically meet as long as there are no other pressing site plan development projects. We're going to keep coming back to you each month. We have one more presentation
Tonight?
Yes,
That's the longer one.
Oh, God.
but let's see how much you can handle. It's interesting stuff. So I just want to preface it by saying, so this next presentation is focused on
One second before we move to that, can I? Sorry, I didn't mean
Sure.
to stop. I didn't realize we were moving on so quickly. With the open space, is any of that currently included? If you're familiar, you may not be. The community rating system, Annapolis is a category 7 in the community rating system.
Yeah.
That means that anyone who gets flood insurance in the city of Annapolis, they get 15% off of their flood insurance policy. With open space, that's activity 420 in the CRS manual. Do we know if there are any open space credits that you're receiving currently, and if this will increase that by adding more to the activity 420?
That's a great, but I am familiar with the rating system. We need to ask John Manassa, who's our floodplain manager, if he is currently accounting. I'm almost positive he is accounting for conservation areas, but whether this rezoning initiative will help us towards a greater credit, I think.
So essentially, long story short, if we bump up those numbers, everyone gets 15% across the entire community now in their flood insurance policies for those that have it. We bump it up, get to a class 6, that's now 20% off. So benefits to conservation here, open space, are multiple, and one of them is monetary. I would just add that to your presentation. I think it's a good way to get people to get on board with it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mr. Littman would certainly like that if it happens. He could trumpet that one.
All right. Well, so we're calling, in some ways, that what you just heard is also kind of a form of zoning consolidation, where we're trying to be more efficient and strategic in the way that we zone the city, and really be more goal oriented. If you look at our current zoning map, it's hard to make sense of how decisions were made, what types of values they were based on, what was the guiding approach to land development that led to our current map. And now that we have our comprehensive plan adopted last year, we have a vision. We can address our zoning map based on what the comprehensive plan is suggesting and the future land use map and all of the many chapters. And so we want to be much more goal oriented. And if we do that, we think we can make a simpler, easier to understand zoning map that will lead to better development outcomes, frankly, that more people will be able to understand. And no disrespect to Mr. Fulton and our land use attorneys in the city, be nice if not everybody had to hire a land use attorney to understand the zoning map and how to advance development in the city. So that's certainly an interest here.
So with that, we're going into zoning consolidation. We came to you guys with a much less clear version of this last year, and this is just a bit more refined from then. This is going to be our agenda for tonight. Just a little recap, what we're talking about for some immediate recommendations, and then why we're leaving some zones out for future phases. To stay up to date, this is our project website. That's where we're showing our current Tyler Avenue complete community and all the meetings that we've held so far. And we also are showing all the legislation of the approved zoning legislation that occurred in the past year. In the code, it requires that anytime we do a zoning map amendment that that covers the entire city, that's proposed and classified in different zones, that, you know, it's proposed. We're basically doing the research up front so that the director or city council can introduce some kind of legislation for that. For the phase 2 process, this is where we're kicking off the entire planning process. Our goal is to, you know, in January, do a workshop with city council, do another meeting with you guys, and start doing an open house with the community where we'd gather some opinions on the zoning consolidation. Towards the end of the winter, we'd like to consolidate it into some kind of plan or report and then submit that to the city council. So this is what we're defining as comprehensive rezoning, which is just meant to bring about better consistency within the comp plan, the zoning map, and the zoning code. These are some priorities that are in the comp plan that we reference a few times during this presentation, where we talk about housing access for all, neighborhood preservation, inclusive economic growth, sustainable development, pedestrian, cycling, and transit connectivity, lower carbon footprint, and prioritize environmental assets. This is our current comprehensive plan future land use map. And a lot of the suggestions that we're coming to you all tonight have to do with trying to get the zoning map to be a little bit more in line with the future land use map. Currently, the city has 32 zoning districts. 31 are shown on this map. And like previously mentioned, open space currently isn't there. So that's why it's 32, but on the map, it'll only show 31. This is all of them on one page. And then some of those recommendations. Zoning consolidation, what we're trying to refer to is we're trying to consolidate as many zones as possible without adding any new zones. In the future, for future zoning consolidation, it might require to consolidate maybe 3 or 4 zones. It might require a new zoning district. But that is currently not what we're proposing at the moment. That is going to be in a future phase, whether it's in the mixed use form-based zoning phase or the residential form-based zoning phase. There are zoning districts that we'll look at during that time, but that is not something we're looking at the moment. Our goal with this, for the most part, is really just trying to make it easier to, like Eric said, kind of do some kind of development in the city where you don't need a land use attorney, whether it's opening a new business, improving your property, or just building a new home. We're really just trying to simplify things within the city. A lot of the reasons that we decided to do the zoning consolidation had to do with inconsistency with the comp plan. Some of the zoning districts are redundant, outdated, or there's just community supported changes. And that, for the most part, everything we're talking about tonight and in this phase 2 presentation, really it's just about our immediate recommendations. So for those immediate recommendations, what we'd like from you all is just feedback on how you can help us generate immediate recommendations that could inform potential legislation that we could help introduce with city council, or you guys could provide feedback on, so that maybe we include less zoning districts in the immediate recommendations, or we include more zoning districts in the immediate recommendations, and that some kind of report exists detailing the zoning consolidation.
So that's going to require a fairly granular. That's the fashionable word. I mean, that's going to require poring over maps and sort of justifying each one of the changes that you propose. Can I suggest we do that in a work session rather than this rather formal, presentation?
What do you mean by the, what's the difference? What when you say work session?
I mean, we can sit around a table and you've got a couple of big maps, and we can look at well, whether this should be done or whether that should be done.
That's. I think
just
as long
giving
as
us a map with your proposals, sitting at it from 20 yards away, doesn't help.
Yeah, I think we could do that. I think as long as we're complying with all the typical notices and
it's a work session. You don't even need to advertise.
We are hoping to do a public meeting or just a workshop with the general public that you all would be invited to as well, where we'd pretty much be doing a very similar thing, where we'd be gathering opinions on a lot of the immediate recommendations that we're talking about.
But yeah, I think when you see the maps that we're showing tonight, I think you're gonna realize, we're gonna have to provide you with more granular information for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So for the immediate zoning consolidation, we're proposing consolidating 8 zoning districts for phase 2. That would be C1A, C2A, C2P. Those 3 are in downtown in the historic district. BR, B3CD. BR is on Clay Street, adjacent to for reference, that's where the Stanton Center is. B3CD is where the Toyota dealership is along West Street. R1A, R1B, and R3R. R1A and R1B are scattered throughout the city. R3R is at the intersection of West Street, Taylor, and Spa at the Circle. So for the C1A, our goal really is we're really just proposing to consolidate the zone into either C1 or C2 when for the most part, we don't really know why C1A was created in the first place, but many of the uses that would be added are simply colleges, multifamily dwelling units, single family dwelling units, institutions, philanthropic nursing homes, stuff of that nature. Those would be added as uses. C1A really can, if you look, it's kind of difficult to tell from this map, but it's very indistinguishable from what C1 is in the downtown area. But for the most part, Duke of Gloucester is C1A, or around the corner on Randall Street where the inn is, that's where the C1A begins. And adjacent to that could be C2 and C1.
Yeah, I want to point out on the upper left, that image is near Hanover Street, adjacent to the Naval Academy, where you actually have a cluster of multifamily dwellings. I would say doesn't stand out in the downtown area. That would not really conform to the C1A today. But generally, we see an opportunity by merging the C1A with the C1, you're maintaining the historic district character. The historic district overlay really supersedes all of this and really dictates the look and character of these buildings. But you are allowing for other residential options which have the potential to bring in more residents of downtown. And that's something we heard in the comprehensive planning process was there's a great desire among longtime residents downtown to have more of their neighborhood back. You know, you have short-term rentals. They want businesses that support the local community. You can't have those businesses if you don't have a density or concentration of full-time residents. And so you can't have the full-time residents unless you have more housing options. So there's just a number of opportunities to allow for sensible, duplexes or triplexes.
what can you do to kind of keep it coming? Pretty sensitive to do these things. You know, 'cause thought, like, yeah.
Well, the legislation that passed, I think, that Alexis had mentioned earlier, is 017. I don't know that actually came to you all because it's Chapter 17 is the building code. That's where the short-term rental legislation is located, or regulations are located. That fact that passed is probably the strongest regulation on short-term rentals that we've seen. It is going to phase them out leading up to 2027, and then they're going to be brought back through this lottery system that will privilege the ones that are owner-occupied first, and then the ones that are, I forget the way that it's structured, but there's basically a system that's going to try to ensure that they're managed by local owners. So that's kind of separate, but I think, I agree that having strong regulation in place is important for the short-term rentals to not overwhelm. Yes.
I will add though that the average city has 10 to 20 zoning district categories. The fact that we have more than 4 times as many than we have square miles in the city blows my mind. Like, and so when you say you want to get rid of 8 or consolidate 8, it's a great start. It's a great start.
Yeah, I also want to say, I mean, we are doing some historical research to try to understand why some of these were created and what their original justification was, and perhaps that original justification is past its prime, is no longer relevant. But these next few that you're going to see, I mean, this one included, you essentially have zones within zones that make for a very complicated map.
Yeah, like we saw that the place that there's in there, like a small zone inside.
Yeah, I mean we're 8.11 square miles counting water area. We're less than 8 square miles, or 7 in some just land, right? And we just have so many zoning categories.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how many square miles is the city of Annapolis? 8? Wow.
40,000 people. That's all.
So building off that, for the next one, it would be C2A. It's very sporadic. There's not very many there's not very many times that it is used. For the most part, it's very prominent on Maryland Avenue. The picture's a little small, but it's these 3 buildings right here where there's businesses on the ground floor and units on the top floor. Outside of that, there is a single house that's currently under construction. I don't know what for, but it's
cafe.
It's a cafe.
The flower. It was an old florist on the upper left.
The one on King George Street.
That's being converted into a coffee shop right now, but that's one of those sites.
But we'd be pretty much introducing more residential uses and commercial uses to these very small districts that would really only impact a few properties here. The final one in downtown would be C2P. It's the Special Conservation Professional Office District, and we're proposing to change it into C2, similar to the C2A, only because we're really trying to provide more housing options, whereas in the bottom left corner off of West Street, it's pretty much all housing there, but in the rest of the C2P, there could be a combination of sometimes there's offices, sometimes there's housing. We really just want to provide more options so that there's more cohesion between basically just more, I don't know how to describe it. It's really just trying to make it simpler to understand at the end of the day.
I think it's also providing flexibility to some of these properties where, you know, the office market may be slumping. We don't need to be so prescriptive to say, particularly on Duke of Gloucester, where you have a lot of residential already. If a particular property can't rent as office, perhaps it can rent as residential or become, or retail. I mean, something that makes these having additional uses does not mean that that's what's going to happen there. It just means they have the flexibility, and many of these uses are by special exception. So,
and something to add to that argument is that is the historic nature of Annapolis. When we look at many of the businesses and things that we have around here, many of them have transitioned in the last 300 years from residential to business, back to residential, back to business. This is part of the historic nature of Annapolis, is that it is something that the structures should be able to fluidly move back and forth.
More based on.
So as previously mentioned by you all, on Clay Street, there's the BR district where the Stanton Center is. I believe you guys this past year during the 03025 legislation heard about the changes to the code that they were proposing during that legislation. We raised the point to them that we were proposing consolidating to this BR district into MX, and they were supportive of the legislation as well. But it's pretty much adjacent to MX and will provide more options for residential housing and more retail options. There's a lot of closed businesses there, and extending the MX district into the BR could provide more options to potentially increase business retention there. B3CD is where the Koons Toyota is and that shopping center on the corner. But as you can see from the picture, it's a lot of paved space. The Koons Toyota and I think the Hyundai next to it pretty much are just, it's paved surface all over the place. If it were to be converted from B3CD to MX, that automotive sales and services usage would no longer be conforming, and that you'd provide a lot more residential and commercial uses that wouldn't have been allowed previously, like single family dwelling units, multifamily, restaurants, retail, and we'd introduce a lot of open space requirements to be more in line with the comp plan.
Does your proposed zone include what used to be Luskins, and then before that it was something else? But you know, that is that
is the image on the bottom left there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. We've been talking about this for 20 years.
I found
just changing the zoning on the auto lots, and so that when the time comes that it's worth more to develop than it is as auto space.
Yeah, I mean, and they would be allowed to continue as long as they were active. They're not being evicted or anything.
Right.
So,
well,
it'd certainly add value to those properties.
Yeah. Nature of
big fan of that. I think using the code in ways to make compliant non-conforming zone, right, where it's compliant because it was built when it was built, it was allowed to be there, right? Not only that, but if people have heartache about it, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it goes out of business, there's like a 1-year time period that another business similar,
That's correct.
Not necessarily a big fan of that, but it should alleviate heartache. This idea that if another car dealership wants to come in, they've got a 1-year grace period to be able to come in and do that before it moves to the new permanently rezoned.
Yeah, I agree.
So the next one is R1A. We're really just trying to preserve neighborhood character and stewardship of environmental assets. Wardour in West Annapolis is R1A. What's the neighborhood you live in?
You have Hunt Meadow in the bottom right is also R1A. And there's a portion of R1A that actually is becoming that large conservation easement that's associated with the villages of Providence Point. So that would actually be addressed. It wouldn't be an issue for that to be, that'll be rezoned as open space. And then the rest of them are just smaller residential pockets. But I would just kind of piggyback on what Casey was saying. I mean, the R1 is a very low density residential district in the city. To merge R1A with R1 would not constitute a significant change in character. And in fact, we're doing the analysis to show what the current lot pattern actually is in the R1A. We don't think it is going to be close to the average 21,000 square feet per home. That is like a rural agricultural zoning type. So
For R1, what is the units per acre?
6.
6. Is there any interest in maybe making that like 8, or just barely bumping it up as well, like consolidating, and then also just a very small increase in the density allotment?
So we are going to look at things like that in our phase 4. We're looking at residential zoning in general, form-based zoning standards that would, if we were to bump the density up slightly, incrementally like that, what are the standards that give people some peace of mind that you know the neighborhood won't really change dramatically? You know, so that we are going to look at things like that.
Annapolis is running out of land. And it's true, right? We're a very small city. We're running out of land. The runway is running short, and anything we can do to lengthen that runway just a little bit more, and again, not to panic anyone, but just a very small bump up of the allotment, I think is positive direction to lengthen that runway.
The other thing I will say about these R1A neighborhoods like Wardour and Hunt Meadow, I mean, they have pretty stringent HOA regulations that I think are more stringent than the zoning even. So that's something we'll look at too, you know, just so people realize it's not suggesting anything dramatic here.
Same with just to carry that airport metaphor a little bit. People don't want jumbo jets landing in Annapolis. They want Piper Cubs.
True. But I just mean, I guess the metaphor would be just the time wise, right? Like, I know that there was a study that essentially said that if we were to continue to build out the way that we're building and only build single family detached homes on the land that Annapolis has currently zoned for residential, we would run out of all land in about 18 or 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Right. Whereas if that's single family detached, right? Whereas if we think about how we can lengthen that time, and we were only, and I'm not saying that we should do this, just saying only build out townhouses, we'd run out of land in about 80 years or something like that. Right. So the idea is I'd rather not run out of land and have to convert green space and open space into residential because we run out of land.
For the R1B, it's a very similar situation to the R1A, where we're really just proposing going to R1 or R2. Most of these communities have been developed, or there's very limited space left. The lot on the top is off of Aris T. Allen. That's the Athens project. What's this?
It's it's formerly known as Rocky Gorge, and it's come before the Planning Commission over the years. But yeah, you see it from Aris T. Allen. It's that large, semi-developed property.
Semi-developed. Not a goddamn thing has been done to it except strip it. And the only reason it's not coming back before us, because there's a lot of problems with access to that property, is because one building permit was issued, 1 out of 47 proposed units. And so it squeaked in on a required reassessment, site design. Okay.
The remaining of the R1B is pretty much Kingsport and the Parkside Preserve development off of Forest. And the other one, the last R1B, that's a strange one. It most likely was just the access to it is from Anne Arundel County. It was most likely developed by the county. It's pretty much a single family housing community. Most likely would end up going to R1.
What are you talking about?
The bottom.
The bottom right here. I don't know what the road is.
It's a small residential subdivision. It's adjacent to Hunt Meadow. I think it's called Harness Creek Overlook or something. Yeah. And the lot pattern is very similar to Hunt Meadow. Just single family homes on kind of traditional lots.
The last one we're looking at in the immediate recommendations is R3R. So we're pretty much looking to turn it into either R3 or MX. We'd prefer for it to be MX because that would be more in line with the comprehensive plan, just to promote growth in the downtown area where it's along a key corridor, which is Spa Road and West Street. It's currently housing at the moment, and it would increase the number of residential and commercial uses if turned into MX.
That's a big one.
Some other zones we're looking at in future phases. During that phase 3, we'd be looking at B1, B2, B3, the 3 remaining commercial, the remaining exclusively commercial districts, which are scattered all over the city, and the P, PM, and PM2, which as well are scattered all over the city. We'd be looking at them during the mixed use form-based zoning
You're looking
phase.
to consolidate all these.
Yeah, basically
Because isn't that the issue with seafood market that can only be used?
That's a very limiting factor for that site. And the theme here is these are all sites on our major corridors. Even though it looks like they are scattered all over the city, but it's Forest Drive, it's West Street, it's that West Annapolis commercial area, Bay Ridge. It's Old Solomon's, Chinkopin, somewhat.
These are real opportunities for us to look at introducing mixed use, but that these are things we're going to get to at some point, but we're really just looking for the easiest one so far.
We have done some thinking on this already. We'll probably be able to share something in January for how these would get consolidated, but pretty substantial.
This is the important one.
Yeah.
And then in the residential, the similar to the immediate, we're only looking at R3NC2, R3NC, and R4R.
And yeah, I mean, within the residential zone, we're going to look, so this is just talking about the consolidation, but we're also going to be looking at sort of incremental tweaks we could do to existing zones, like to Commissioner Cummings' point, that there may be some very moderate changes we could do to, accelerate the types of housing options that are existing in the city, and it wouldn't really change the character so much. But these are the 3 zones that we think could be consolidated that are just, not to say there is value in these NC districts, the 2 you see on top, but they may not have to be their own NC district. They may be able to merge with another NC, or it could be an overlay. But one of them is the President's Hill neighborhood. We certainly recognize the value of that as kind of a historically intact community, and the value of having an NC district there. But it's the only area that has its own, it's R3 NC2. Does it need to have its own NC, and why was that? Yeah. There's obviously a large section, Eastport.
How far back do things go?
Not just a few decades, but for the most part. But yeah, not
What would be the objective of consolidating
just
these three?
simplifying the zoning map and reducing outdated or redundant zones that might be redundant with other zones that we already have, if that could do maybe the same thing. That's
Do the design overlays on these different conservation districts, are they the same standard overlays, or does each one have its own peculiar characters? Like
they're
different.
They're different.
They're different.
They're different.
they're
But
different.
yeah.
So if you consolidate the zones, and you've got NC, NC2, okay.
It's not so much, from my reading of them, it's not so much the standards pertaining to how they look. It's more the uses that are allowed. Yeah, for example, the R2NC, which you were just hearing about in the Eastport area, that's more restrictive than these R3NCs, even though there's a lot of uses in that are conforming, non-conforming.
The
doesn't
uses
allow,
are non-conforming.
Yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
allow
But
that area has.
But standardizing or some, they each have their own characters, so they might have design standards that vary. I don't know how how do you deal with that?
Well, figuring out what the commonalities are that we can, but a lot of them, it's frankly about the pattern of development in the neighborhood.
And not the use.
We need to define neighborhood.
And so the way I look at it, right, and let me know if I'm misreading, but not necessarily to consolidate all of them into one,
Right.
but to look at any particular spot on the map and say, okay, what blends in around that neighborhood, that particular neighborhood, and how can we consolidate it with something that might be around that area?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not. I wouldn't view it and say all of that's going to get lumped into the same exact thing.
And I think more to Eric's point, when we originally had R3NC and R3NC2 in our immediate recommendations, and we pulled them out because we debated internally, well, R3NC2 should be held off for later, but R3NC we wanted to put in immediately because currently it's along West Street. They're huge lots, but a lot of the housing there is Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts.
And I don't
like these are huge homes all along West Street that are basically just turned into out of state housing.
I'm in favor. I view most of this zoning, for anyone that doesn't know, most of this Euclidean zoning came around a lot in the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? And in my head, without knowing specifically the 60s and 70s environment for Annapolis around who did this, it's like you gave a kid way too much caffeine, gave him a bunch of crayons and said, go at it, right? And so then they just did a lot. We don't need that much.
Right. And I mean, I think it's worth acknowledging that the decisions that were made were not necessarily equitable. I mean, the people involved in making those decisions were not always the people living there generally. So we're trying to.
So kind of just a quick summary on how the consolidation fits in the rest of what we're doing. In this immediate, we're really talking about just consolidating 8 zoning districts into the existing zoning districts that we have. That would take us down from 32 down to 24 off the jump. And then in the phase 3, we'd be looking at B1, 2, and 3, P, PM, PM2. If we consolidate all of those, there might be new zones with it, but that would occur during phase 3. And then phase 4, we'd look at those final 3 zoning districts during the residential form-based zoning standards.
And with both of those, phase 3 and phase 4, that's where we're also looking at the form-based zoning standards that would sort of give some greater clarity to what kind of development we're looking for, the character of it.
So our next steps, next month, we're going to try and meet with the new city council. We're going to keep refining these recommendations and come back to you next month and we're going to start to plan an open house or a workshop with the community in the next month or two. And that by next month, we'll come back to you with some more refined recommendations, most likely a schedule for when we're going to end up having that open house or workshop that we'd love for you guys to attend. And then any feedback we get from the city council on what we've been talking about so far. And if you guys have any questions or comments on how we can refine this or what more we can do, we'd love to hear.
That's definitely a good way to describe it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that you guys have been handed just a giant puzzle, and now you got to kind of put it all together. But you know, as someone like a lot of us have dealt with a lot of these zones, it gets complicated. So, you know, it looks great, and I think you guys are going the right direction. So,
thanks.
I just think at some point we need to have the opportunity to just look more closely. This is really what we're suggesting, okay? It's just hard to pick up, but I think I agree with Tom. You know, this is the first time after the three comprehensive plans, this is the third comprehensive plan I've lived through. This is the only time that anybody has ever done anything after the plan was passed. This is the only time. Going back, 25 years, it was like, oh, we need to consolidate our 32 districts. And it's like, okay, here we are. So, yes, let me tell you, this is, it's been good. It's all because of Mr. Lischinski.
he's also pointing out how old he is, that he's been through so many comprehensive plans.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. It's been good. It's a good, great team. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Ladies and
Madam. Gentlemen and madam.
It's a good one. We look forward to it. And the pace that you're setting is fast. It's good. It's good. Great. All right. We need to get back to Miss Cheryl Wood. I need to resolve this. And I
Yes,
have an
sir.
idea. I have an idea. What is it that you found, if anything?
Okay, yes, I did find, and thank you for your indulgence. Let me just pull it up so I can speak clearly. You are correct, Chair Waldman. There is an exception. This is in your, oh dear. Oh, this is in your rules. Oh no, let me go here first. Hold on. Okay. Oh dear, hold on one moment. Okay. The Planning Commission, this is in your rules, 9.19. Planning Commission shall issue a written opinion in order within 45 days after the conclusion of the public hearing and deliberations and vote, unless the chairman determines that more time is necessary to do so, in which case the chairman shall designate a later date for issuance of the opinion and order. And then it goes on to say what the opinion and order summarize. And then there's a provision that the chairperson may call a special meeting of the Planning Commission. The chairperson shall schedule a special meeting of the Planning Commission at the request of 2 or more members of the Planning Commission, the mayor or the city council, and all special meetings shall be scheduled within 10 days of the chairman's decision to call or within that request from the mayor, 2 members of the Planning Commission or city council. So those are the 2 applicable things that I found.
The chairman makes the appropriate findings that more time is required for us to review and consider the opinions on both 161 West Street and whatever the
Yeah,
address
518,
was on
6.
yes, whatever it was on 6th Street.
But a 2 members of the commission or the mayor or the city council can request that you have a special meeting and can request that those items be on the agenda. So those are the 2 things I
Well,
found.
I've not heard those requests, and if I do, then we'll deal with them. But at this point, the chairman is making the required finding that we need more time. I could have used another parliamentary maneuver which was to add it to the agenda tonight and then immediately continue it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Cheryl. That resolves that issue. We will hear it on January the 8th. Gentlemen, read it.
Yep.
Okay? All right. Anything else? Ms. Consoli's halfway out of here already. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have
Oh,
one thing I'd like to mention, ask rather. Chair, you point out something very important, that sometimes there's these competing interests, and something they need to be fixed by the city council. How does this commission put forth such recommendations to the city council?
The commission can do a lot of things. The commission could make a recommendation that, something get changed. This is something that needs to get done, okay? The commission could involve itself in work sessions with, say, one of the council persons who wants to push some legislation. We could have a work session or, to talk about things. That's probably the second way. If we wish to spend the time and the expertise, we could actually propose legislation. Would be more efficient to find a council person sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
But we have in the code, we have the potential for hiring our own experts, our own counsel, and so forth and so on. As a result of the 6th Street decision, and I must tell you that there were I would say, in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 people who have told me that they watched the whole thing. I think that a small committee will be formed. Members of this commission might sit on it. If you were interested, you could sit on it, to basically begin to organize, this Eastport large house legislation, make it clearer. So that's a way, and then it would come, we get formulated through the Office of Law, and then it would come to us for just consideration. I would say, find an alder person and make friends with them and let them know what we're doing, because there are 3 brand new alder people on this council, 4 brand new alder people on this council, and they need education. Right. So take them under your wing. But we have the authority actually to propose legislation. We could compose and propose that legislation if we wish. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it will come to us. Any zoning legislation will come to us.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Now, motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good job, Jen. Good job tonight.
Take that name.
Good patient.